Consistency trumps perfection. Consistency trumps perfection because success is not built on flawless actions. It is built on repeated effort. Perfection is a myth that keeps people frozen in place, waiting for the right moment, the ideal conditions, the perfect plan. But greatness is achieved by those who show up even when the moment isn't ideal, even when the plan isn't perfect, even when conditions are far from comfortable. The world does not reward those who wait for perfection. It rewards those who take consistent steps forward. Every day, every effort, every repetition compounds into results that most people never taste because they were too busy trying to make everything perfect before they even began. I refuse to let perfection paralyze me. I choose consistency because consistency guarantees progress, and progress, no matter how small, guarantees transformation. Consistency trumps perfection because the act of showing up creates momentum. When you show up again and again, you create habits. And habits create identity. When you do something consistently, it becomes part of who you are. Not just something you do, but something you embody. A person who exercises consistently becomes strong, not because of the perfect workout routine, but because they repeat the act long enough to mold their body. A person who learns consistently becomes wise, not because every study session was perfect, but because the repetition shaped their mind. Life rewards those who stay committed even when they are tired, even when motivation is low, even when excuses whisper in their ears. Perfection has never built a champion. Consistency has. Consistency trumps perfection because real change happens through accumulation. A drop of water means nothing on its own, but when it falls in the same place repeatedly, it carves through stone. That is the power of consistency. Quiet, steady, relentless. Perfection demands intensity, but consistency demands persistence, and persistence always outlasts intensity. Anyone can give maximum effort for one day, but very few can give steady effort for months or years. The ones who do are the ones who rise. The ones who push through boredom, frustration, setbacks, and slow progress are the ones who cross the finish line. When I commit to consistency, I commit to becoming unstoppable over time. I commit to growth that compounds. I commit to victories earned through discipline, not through luck. Consistency trumps perfection because perfection focuses on outcomes, while consistency focuses on habits. Outcomes are the fruit, but habits are the roots. You can desire an outcome, but without strong habits rooted in consistency, that desire produces nothing. Perfectionists often fail because they are obsessed with the fruit. They want instant results, flawless execution, and immediate recognition. But nature does not work that way, and neither does success. The roots must grow first, silently, beneath the surface, without applause, without visibility. That is what consistency does. It builds the foundation that later supports extraordinary results. I choose to focus on the roots, not the fruit. I choose consistency because habits reshape destiny. Consistency trumps perfection because perfection is fragile. The moment a perfectionist makes a mistake, they spiral, they quit, they feel like they failed. But someone who values consistency understands that mistakes are part of the journey. They know that imperfections do not erase progress. They know that setbacks do not define them. They know that missing a step does not mean the race is over. Consistency teaches resilience, how to continue even after falling, how to persist even when results slow down, how to recommit every time life distracts or discourages. Perfection crumbles at the first sign of difficulty. Consistency rises every time difficulty appears. Consistency trumps perfection because perfection focuses on looking good, while consistency focuses on getting better. The perfectionist wants to impress, the consistent person wants to improve. The perfectionist wants to appear flawless, the consistent person wants to become stronger. The perfectionist fears judgment, the consistent person embraces growth. And growth requires imperfection. Growth requires trial and error. Growth requires messy attempts, awkward beginnings, failed plans, and vulnerable efforts. Anyone who becomes great did not start great. They started inconsistent, unpolished, unskilled. But they kept going, they kept training. They kept learning, they kept improving, and eventually consistency turned them into what perfection never could. Unstoppable. Consistency trumps perfection because consistency teaches discipline. Discipline is the backbone of all success. It is the ability to act not only when you feel inspired, but also when you feel tired, distracted, or discouraged. Discipline means doing what needs to be done, even when your emotions try to negotiate with you. When you are consistent, you train your mind to follow your decisions rather than your feelings. You build mental toughness. You strengthen your willpower. You create a version of yourself that can rely on you. And when you become someone who consistently shows up, you become someone who consistently succeeds. Consistency trumps perfection because success is not an event, it is a lifestyle. You don't achieve your dreams in one perfect moment. You build them through countless imperfect moments. Every drop of sweat, every late night, every early morning, every difficult choice, every failure, every comeback, all of these moments accumulate into something remarkable. Success is not a single explosion of brilliance. It is the slow-burning fire of effort repeated day after day. And I choose to keep that fire burning. I choose to nurture it with consistency. I choose to protect it from the wind of excuses, the storms of doubt, and the cold air of fear. My fire will not die because I show up to feed it every day. Consistency trumps perfection because the world is shaped by those who take daily action. Not those who talk about action, plan action, or wait for the perfect moment to begin action. It is shaped by the people who take that first imperfect step, and then another and another, until those steps form a path so strong that nothing can erase it. Most people never succeed because they never start, and when they do start, they soon stop. They expect perfection to come naturally, and when it doesn't, they abandon the journey. But the consistent ones understand that progress is born from repetition, not exceptionalism. They know that consistency is the engine of excellence. With every repeated effort, they refine their skills, strengthen their mindset, and expand their capabilities. They become masters not by talent alone, but by 10,000 imperfect repetitions. Consistency trumps perfection because perfection is rooted in fear, fear of judgment, fear of failure, fear of not being enough. Perfectionists build walls around themselves, trying to protect their image, but consistency builds bridges toward growth, toward confidence, toward resilience. When you act consistently, you teach yourself that you are capable of handling challenges. You prove to yourself that mistakes do not define you. You reinforce the belief that you can endure difficulty. Consistency dissolves fear by confronting it repeatedly. Eventually, fear loses power because your actions speak louder than your anxieties. You become someone who no longer stops because of fear, but someone who moves despite fear. Consistency trumps perfection because perfection focuses on results, while consistency focuses on effort. And the truth is that results are a reflection of accumulated effort. You cannot control everything that happens around you, but you can control what you do every day. You can control whether you show up, whether you commit, whether you push forward even when the path seems uncertain. Consistency teaches you to take full responsibility for your actions instead of obsessing over outcomes. It teaches you that effort is never wasted. Every day you show up, you grow. Every day you work, you improve. Every day you push forward, you inch closer to your goals. Even on days when nothing seems to change, something inside you evolves. Your discipline strengthens, your resolve deepens, your character matures. Consistency trumps perfection because perfect conditions rarely exist. Life is unpredictable. Days will come when you feel unmotivated, uninspired, overwhelmed, tired, or discouraged. Days will come when things go wrong, when the plan falls apart, when distractions pull at your attention. If perfection were required for success, no one would ever succeed. But consistency does not demand perfect conditions. It only demands presence. It only demands effort. It only demands that you show up anyway, that you move forward regardless of circumstances, that you continue even when it's hard. The person who waits for the stars to align will remain waiting. The person who works through the storms will rise above them. Consistency trumps perfection because greatness is built in the unnoticed moments. Success is not formed on the stage, it is formed backstage. It is shaped in early mornings when no one watches, late nights when no one cares, silent hours when no one applauds. Consistency keeps you committed through all these moments. It keeps you grinding when recognition is absent, when progress is slow, when results are invisible. And that's when champions are made. In the darkness before dawn, in the quiet before the breakthrough, in the loneliness of effort before the world sees the transformation. When you are consistent, you develop a relationship with discipline so strong that external validation becomes irrelevant. You begin to work not for applause but for mastery, not for recognition but for evolution. Consistency trumps perfection because perfection fears mistakes, while consistency learns from them. Mistakes are not signs of failure, they are stepping stones to wisdom. They reveal what needs improvement. They highlight weaknesses that must be strengthened. They expose blind spots. They teach strategy. They refine technique. Perfectionists fear mistakes because they believe mistakes diminish their worth. But a consistent person understands that mistakes build resilience. They know that failure is not fatal, it is feedback. They use every setback as a tool for improvement. They take the lesson, adjust their approach, and keep moving. Because of this mindset, consistent people evolve rapidly, while perfectionists remain stuck, waiting for a flawless path that will never exist. Consistency trumps perfection because perfection demands immediate results, but consistency understands the power of patience. Patience is not waiting, it is enduring with purpose. It is the ability to keep moving forward without seeing instant gratification. When you are consistent, you learn to appreciate the slow, steady climb. You learn to trust that every effort is planting a seed, even if you cannot yet see the harvest. You learn to value the journey, not just the destination. Patience fuels persistence, and persistence, powered by consistency, creates unstoppable momentum. Consistency trumps perfection because consistency transforms ordinary people into extraordinary achievers. You do not have to be the smartest, strongest, or most talented. You simply have to keep going when others stop. You have to persist when others quit. You have to commit when others hesitate. Talent is a gift, but consistency is a choice. And that choice can outperform talent when talent refuses to work. Over time, the consistent person surpasses the talented person who lacks discipline. Over time, the consistent person becomes the master, the leader, the expert, the one others look up to. Not because they were perfect, but because they refused to stop. Consistency trumps perfection because the very act of repeating something builds confidence. Confidence is not created by doing things perfectly. It is created by proving to yourself that you can keep showing up. Every time you follow through on your commitment, even when you don't feel like it, you expand your inner strength. You teach yourself that your word matters. You demonstrate that you can rely on yourself. And when you can rely on yourself, your confidence becomes unshakable. Perfection, on the other hand, destroys confidence because it sets a standard that is impossible to meet. It pressures you, overwhelms you, and convinces you that you are not good enough unless everything you do is flawless. But consistency liberates you from that trap. It empowers you to take action, embrace imperfections, and build real confidence through genuine effort. Confidence grows through repetition, not perfection. Consistency trumps perfection because consistency survives the ups and downs of life. There will be days when you feel powerful and days when you feel weak. Days when everything flows and days when everything falls apart. But consistency does not depend on how you feel. It depends on your commitment. Consistency carries you through the emotional fluctuations that perfection cannot withstand. The perfectionist collapses when they lose motivation, but the consistent person keeps moving because their actions are not dictated by emotion, they are dictated by purpose. Purpose-driven action is stronger, deeper, and more durable than emotion-driven action. And when life tests you, and it will, it is your consistency, not your perfection, that keeps you moving forward. Consistency trumps perfection because perfection leads to procrastination. People wait and wait and wait. They wait for confidence. They wait for skill. They wait for clarity. They wait for the fear to disappear. But consistency teaches you that you must begin before you feel ready. You must take imperfect action. You must start without certainty. You must step onto the path even when you can't see the entire journey. Every great achievement began with imperfect action. Every masterpiece started as a rough draft. Every champion began as a beginner. Waiting for perfection kills dreams. Acting consistently brings them to life. Consistency trumps perfection because perfection is unrealistic, but consistency is sustainable. You cannot operate at 100% every single day, but you can operate at 1%, 10, 20%, and those small percentages add up. Some days you will be powerful, some days you will simply push through. Some days you will break records, some days you will just do the minimum. But consistency means you never stop completely. You never let the momentum die. You move forward whether the step is big or small. You stay in motion, and motion, even slow motion, is infinitely better than standing still waiting for the perfect moment to take a perfect step. Consistency trumps perfection because consistent effort compounds in silence. You may not see results immediately. Others may not see your progress at first, but slowly, quietly, day by day, your work accumulates. Every repetition strengthens you. Every attempt sharpens you. Every practice session builds you. Every step, no matter how small, adds weight to your transformation. And then one day, seemingly out of nowhere, people call you talented, gifted, or lucky, not realizing that what they are witnessing is the visible tip of an iceberg built from countless invisible efforts. That is the miracle of consistency. It makes the impossible inevitable. Consistency trumps perfection because perfection emphasizes appearance, while consistency emphasizes substance. The perfectionist wants to look like they are succeeding. They want everything polished, everything impressive, everything shiny. But the consistent person is interested in depth, skill, mastery, and growth. They are not focused on impressing others. They are focused on improving themselves. And over time, substance always beats appearance. Substance lasts. Substance grows. Substance builds legacies. Appearance fades, but a strong foundation built on consistency endures for a lifetime. Consistency trumps perfection because perfection is lonely, but consistency builds identity. When you strive for perfection, you judge yourself harshly. You criticize every flaw, every mistake, every shortcoming. You expect yourself to be superhuman. But consistency gives you space to be human. It allows you to grow gradually. It allows you to make mistakes without shame. It allows you to evolve at your own pace. Consistency doesn't demand that you be the best immediately. It simply demands that you keep going. And in that journey, you discover who you truly are, what you truly want, and what you are truly capable of. You form a new identity, someone who doesn't quit, someone who follows through, someone who persists, someone who grows. That identity becomes the ultimate source of strength. Consistency trumps perfection because perfection is temporary, but consistency is eternal. Perfection shows up only when everything aligns perfectly, which is rare. But consistency can show up in chaos, in struggle, in uncertainty, in difficulty. Consistency can show up in the storm, not just in the sunshine. And the person who shows up in the storm becomes invincible in the sunshine. The person who practices through difficulty becomes unstoppable in ease. Perfection cannot survive adversity, but consistency thrives in it. Consistency is the quiet force that keeps you locked onto your purpose, even when everything around you shifts. It is the anchor that protects your dreams from drifting away. Consistency trumps perfection because consistency turns dreams into routines and routines into realities. When you repeat something long enough, it becomes automatic. It becomes part of you. The things that once required enormous effort eventually become effortless. The practices that once felt heavy begin to feel natural. Consistency rewires the brain, reshapes the body, strengthens the mind, and transforms the spirit. What was once difficult becomes normal. What was once intimidating becomes easy. What was once a distant dream becomes your everyday reality. That is the power of showing up again and again without needing everything to be perfect. Consistency trumps perfection because success is not built on perfect days. It is built on hundreds of imperfect ones. The days you show up tired, the days you show up discouraged, the days you show up with low energy, the days you show up despite failure. Those days define you far more than the perfect days ever could. The imperfect days sharpen your resilience. They strengthen your discipline. They prove your commitment. They teach you patience. They build your character. And when you add all those imperfect days together, they form something extraordinary, a life of unstoppable progress.